ladies and gentlemen.
Ah, there it is. I wondered if you
Oh
were gonna pull
man.
that out.
I
Oh,
thought about it as, a couple of throwbacks here and there.
let's go. I am gonna call this episode "Mindful Meeting," so it was appropriate. It was appropriate.
That's fair. Yeah.
We're back in a way. We are
We are
back
back.
on an episode here together. This is the first time I looked at the episode right before we started this to see when we posted our last episode of the Mindful Meetings podcast, and that was July 16th of 2024. So when I
We're
drop
like
this
right there.
episode, it'll be like 2 days to the year or to 2 years almost.
Yeah, I mean like Facebook's been subtly like doing like Facebook story reminders of like the past episodes, especially this month because I think we did a lot of episodes like in this time frame, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're cranking them out. And that last one, we took a little break and then left the viewers hanging. It's been 2 years
yeah.
since. They're like, where'd they go? They vanished. Now what are we gonna do?
You
But
know,
it's
yeah, I mean, we kind of went through, yeah, each of us sort of went into our own transition period, at least for me, I sort of, I'm not going to call it like a dark place, but I just, there was several areas of my life that I didn't feel comfortable in anymore. I just felt like I just sort of lost footing and been slowly climb my way out of it, in a lot of
hmm
areas, trying to sort of regain my comfortability, around people and talking about different things. But
yeah.
I ended up reaching out to you, and I was like, hey man, let's get lunch,
hmm
and it's some of that revolves around the side project that I'm working on, where it's more of like a system of discipline for focusing on, I don't want to call them soft skills, um, but interpersonal skills. And so that was when I just reached out to you and I was like, yo man, let's get lunch. And then I just apologized to you, and here now we meet up about once a month and
hmm
just nothing but laughs,
Yeah. It's always a good time
just
reminiscing.
messing with the waitress or whatever. Yeah.
Never fails. Never fails.
I know, I can't help
She's,
it. Just
she's like, "Hi, Bailey." You're like, "What the heck? What about me?" And then the whole rest of the
yeah.
time, she's like, "Anthony, Anthony, Anthony." Oh, that was awesome. Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah.
because we back when we were doing mindful meetings, like that was kind of right before my wedding too. Like I wanted to get better in
Yeah.
the gym and kind of just grow personally, and we both just kind of came together and were just rock solid. Like we were the best of friends. I mean, I would say anyway, and from my perspective.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we were
for
working at
sure.
the jail. We were just crushing life. And then yeah, we just kind of both started going our separate ways. You ended up getting a job elsewhere, kind of moving on, and I felt, a little hurt, and I had my own emotions and my own part in it too. My own little bitterness is about
Yeah.
it. And instead of trying to be there for you in a way that I probably should have been, and we got a chance to meet up that first time, and you kind of laid it all out there and apologized for everything you're part of it. I was like, whoa, like it honestly took me by surprise. I was not expecting all of that. You just like here, man, and then I kind of got a chance to apologize for my side of everything, and it's been cool to be able to meet up again
Yeah.
every month.
No, I mean, there's been this big focus that I've been working on where, trying to stretch away from just the mindset of different things and more towards the discipline side of just, doing things. And
Mm-hmm.
so, apologizing is never easy. And so then it's like you don't think about the difficulty, you just keep doing it and eventually it gets easier, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
yeah, I was super unsure about it because I was like, okay, is this going to be okay, and then you just have to start thinking back. It's like, we were like the best of friends, and it's like there's something, some type of setback shouldn't be enough to, you know because you imagine, like, if you think about, you know the word like relationship doesn't have to mean, like just with your wife. You have a relationship with your friends, and how much do you want to invest in that friendship, and how much do those friendships mean? And then realizing that, like, well, if I just got into an argument with my wife, I'm not just gonna, permanently go sleep in another house, unless it was like a big argument, like she ate my Cheetos or something, and then I'm like, you're done. Nah.
Dead to me. Bye.
um, but no, and then there were some parts that were nice, like for both of us. I mean, especially with Iron Purpose, getting to like push yourself to be independent in that thing because we
Mm-hmm.
were rolling on mindful meetings and it was a group effort, and it really pushed you to like step away and then grow in that your own arena. And then when we got back together, I was like, whatever you need help with, I'm here, and that's an important thing.
Yeah, and that was huge. Yeah, for you to say that too. And I was talking to one of my coworkers, one of your former coworkers, and we were I kind of started telling people, they're like, "Hey, how's Moberg?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, we actually got lunch like the other day." And they're like, "Seriously?" Because they knew how close we were, and then they knew about
Yeah.
the falling out, and so they're like, "For real? Okay, well, what's going on with that?" And they're like, "Oh, you should have him on your podcast." And I was like, he actually said that he would be willing to do it, and like,
Yeah.
as stoked about how things are going. And you're right, I would never have had that push had we not had that separation, that break, or whatever you call it. Because you know me, I'm not tech savvy by any means. So you were
Right.
handling all the technical side of everything. So when I had Iron Purpose, and it was kind of even before we had our split or whatever, like I still had it. It was that gym accountability group
Yeah.
that I'd started, and
Yep.
it just kind of trickled into kind of to what it is now, what I've been doing with it. And but I was like, how do I even post a podcast? How do I even record one and put it on Spotify, YouTube? How do I do this? And I had to reach out to a lot of people to get it figured out. And I mean, I'm still trying to figure it all out, but just for you to offer that out, like, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the difficult parts, in our friendship. So it's not all lost, especially when we're able to look at it, both admit where we were wrong and put our best foot forward in it. Like you can see the growth and the good that came out of the tough times too.
Well, and each of us having our own thing is just as important with any relationship,
Hmm.
where it's like, you and your wife have to have separate hobbies. You wouldn't be able to function where you do everything together all the time. Like,
Yeah.
each of you will have different interests, and it's okay to have that. Well, it's
Hmm.
okay for each of us to have our own projects, and then we can come together, like we have been, and just, having lunch and having those conversations still, because even though it's a lot of just joking around and catching up, there's still, we're still talking about important things.
Hmm. And honestly, that's kind of how mindful meetings started in the first place. Was
Right.
And we were just joking around in the sauna with like seven other guys. Like in the morning, it was like the typical crew. We'd all work out, and then we'd all go to the sauna and be like sweating, and you'd crack some joke, and then they'd all be like, ah, and then we're like talking, like we should like start recording this, and then it turned into meeting up every week or whatever it was, and just chatting, just bantering back and forth, and having there's still purpose within each episode. We'd have like a topic and go over it and
Yep.
try to find that. But a lot of times it's just chatting with a buddy and recording it. And if somebody listens, sweet. If not, it's like this. It's super fun to just be able to talk, to connect, reconnect, grow with a fellow man.
Yeah, I mean, and it's nice, especially when it's like you and I, because, like I was saying before we started today's episode, it was just like you and I are just so natural talking with one another, especially about either serious topics or things like that, that it's doesn't really need any like real prep. It's just like that's how mindful meetings worked. We just started hit record. There was never like a list of questions or anything except for
Right.
maybe the Miranda Maverick one where we were like, that was like a big ticket, and it was like,
We got to
let's make
button it
that
up.
one count. Yeah.
Slapping each other beforehand. Come on, pull yourself together.
Yeah.
No, not really. There was no physical abuse. Don't worry, people.
Yeah.
Speaking of, remember that time in the gym you were getting ready for a fight and you're like, I need you to hit me. And so I put the gloves
Oh,
on and you just stood by that stretching bar or whatever you call it. And I was just
yeah.
like going at your abdomen and like people are looking like, are they okay? And you're like, come on,
Yeah.
harder, hit me harder.
Yeah. Just
We dove right into it, man. I wasn't expecting to get into the what happened right away, but I appreciate
oh
your honesty
yeah.
and your willingness to kind of to kind of dive in right away and just kind of clear the air, like I said, it's been about 2 years since we've recorded an episode. And
Yeah,
I've seen you. Obviously, this hasn't been 2 years since I've seen you or talked to you.
right.
We got together maybe 5 or 6 times in the past couple months.
It's been 84 years.
You come in and sit down. You're all older.
Paint me like one of your French girls.
Maybe I need a painting of you back here somewhere, like right here or something.
The
I,
Titanic
I
painting,
yeah,
100%.
just just gotta blur it out for the younger viewers.
Yeah.
Oh golly, that's awesome. Well, now that we kind of got that part out of the way,
Yeah.
we're rolling. Um, I wrote down four different things. I put what's up, what happened, what's your story, and what's next. So we're gonna go back up to what's up. What you've been up to
Yeah.
lately. Since people last heard us on the podcast together. I know you've kind
Oh,
of jumped
it's
around
been
some
two
different
two
jobs and are at a
years.
pretty cool one right now. Yeah,
Yeah, so
right.
yeah, so I left I ended up leaving the jail. We were sort of trying to tone down some of the stressors in my life. Between boxing, the fire department, and the jail. It was like, let's pick a safer occupation if I'm going to maintain, the other two. Uh, and then so I went over to land services to go work in planning and zoning, and had a different team, a different culture of people, and got to spend a lot of time outdoors, and then really learning you know the the inner workings of actual like local government. So you think about the show like Parks and Rec, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
like so many similarities and like of what we have to do uh, all the time. So it was like it's fun to actually see or like be a part of a government. And I've always been working as a government job, in corrections, but this is like actually taking part in, the county board and other various levels. But it was sort of nice because when you sort of take away that jail stress, then it sort of allowed me to take that step back that I needed to start focusing on some interpersonal things and
Mhm.
especially and then diving into Raven Guild and my side project. Started trying to build back up to kind of where I where I was. You go on this journey of like hitting pause and being like, where are we at right now? And where did we think we were supposed to be as far as a person? And I
Mhm.
used to always believe that I used to consider myself to be a moral person, just with a very dark, offensive sense of humor. But at least I, had the best intentions most of the time. And
Mhm.
then, I just went through, that phase like with you and then, a couple other close friendships that I had just cut off. And then it just sort of felt like in the grand scheme, I had sort of betrayed a lot of the values that I used to try and preach. And then
Mhm.
I just sort of took all those steps to sort of rebuild and focus on doing some of the things and focusing just more on those human skills of being able to apologize and actually try and talk about feelings, although I'm still not very good at that aspect of it if you ask my wife. But just other things, it's the idea of just like actually trying to think through things that you don't normally, if you have like if your job is full of stressors, you don't really take the time to think about a lot of other things.
Mhm.
um, I mean, and we've seen it with, plenty of officers where the jail ends up becoming like a focal point. If you let it become the focal point, it's going to.
Right. Right. I
Um,
think emotionally too, like a lot of people, and I've talked about this before, where Zig Ziglar talks about the wandering generality versus the meaningful
yep.
specific, and I think there comes that point in like you're referencing in a correctional officer's life or anybody's life, where they just start going through the steps, going through the motions, and becoming that wandering generality, and you just kind of start falling apart. You start losing your focus, and I think exactly what you're describing is you hit that point and was like, all right, now now it's time to find that meaningful, specific portion of my
Yep.
life again and get back after it.
Yeah, in the couple chapters that I've written in the book that I'm working on, I've talked about I've used the phrase white noise because there's so much of your life where if you're not really putting into it, you will just white noise just years, and I mean it could just fly by. You could just, 10 years could go by and you could just have zero growth as a person, and
Right.
it's unless you're actively trying to challenge and think about those things.
What is the point of trying to fight through that white noise, like for you? Like, why not just continue to go on with the comfort, I guess, of the wandering generality or the white noise? Because sometimes it can be comfortable, the that white noise of our life. But what does it mean for you to move past that, and why, I guess?
Yeah, so I think, I'm hitting pause here. I'm practicing that pause before I answer to really think on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we view or what most people view as being comfortable, it is actually detrimental,
Mm.
as far as somebody's mental health. I mean, there are so many studies showing that going out and doing other things or having hobbies, being, minimally active as a routine, making healthy food choices. I mean, there's just like, 1,000 studies that show that all of those are beneficial, but yet we feel comfortable. And so we're okay with that. And then, and so we tend to not really think about where our actual mental health is when you're just wandering, and what's the
Mm-hmm.
state of your mental health. I think if you're not actively thinking about it, then your mental health is tanking and all of your relationships are going to follow suit, and you're just sort of ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you kind of have to fight through it, and you don't really pay attention. I mean, I when I, stopped boxing, it's been 2 years. I've put on 50 pounds over the span of that time,
Mm-hmm.
and it happens and you don't really pay attention to it. And then your willingness to even care about it goes away because I'm just comfortable being able to just do nothing. And then
Right.
eventually it was like, hey, let's, you know, and some of that I attribute to reaching out to you. I think repairing that relationship, sort of helped me, kickstart a lot of the other stuff where it's like, it's okay. We can get back to where we want to be, and now I've gone from 220 pounds down to 195 as of this morning in
Let's go,
like,
man.
almost, not quite 2 months. So it's been pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And still, and you just start to feel better about all of the stuff you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then that paved the way for me to even want to move up in my career right now. I've enjoyed being a part of local government, and now, I'm the planning and zoning administrator for an actual, I referred to it the other day as my cushy office job, you know.
That's awesome. And you're working working towards getting back in the ring again as well, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually this morning I was out in the sun just shadow boxing and doing some squats and jump rope and bunch of ab work outside, you know.
Gross.
Yeah, right.
It's
Did all of
88
that
degrees. Let's
before
go.
and then I still did a whole Costco Walmart trip, and then really
More
just wanted
gross.
to drive off the bridge into the Mississippi, but you know,
But you didn't. You're here
no.
because you had a podcast to do.
Right. Obligations, I said I'd do it.
Uh,
I can't say what's going to happen afterwards.
Come on
You'll
now.
read You'll read it in the newspaper or on Facebook.
You started a band. Just something completely random. Yeah. And you got it. You know,
Uh,
you moved in that with those 2 years. You moved to a new location too, so you got your own place,
yeah,
and you got
yeah,
your
and
horses
that,
are there with.
yeah, that, I mean, that had its own struggles too. And, I think about, there's a part of me that's proud that I was able to, Heather and I together worked through that whole process of getting the house, getting the property cleared, the house here, getting all the utilities and set up and everything. Cause that was a lot of, it wasn't through like a general contractor. I was making a lot of the phone calls and setting up all this stuff on the timelines, and being out here on the property now, and then having, like you said, having the horses on the property where we don't have to drive half an hour, 40 minutes to go see them every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed a lot, and I'm super grateful that we can do that.
Mm,
Um,
for sure,
and
man.
that's another thing where it's like, when you start building, if you take ownership of the environment that you're in, then it sort of makes way, or gives you sort of the room to start doing all the other stuff. It's not that work doesn't have its stresses where like you don't want to do anything afterwards, but when it's manageable, then it just sort of opens up the arena. Now we're in a house that we enjoy, and that makes you feel even more, as a positive comfort,
Mm,
you know.
mm-hmm.
And I think that is a distinguish that, people do need to think about, where it's like not just comfortable, but like a positive comfort,
Mm-hmm.
you know, rather than just sort of, I don't want to, for lack of a better word, ignorantly comfortable.
Right. Well, and I think the difference in those comforts is you've earned one of them. You didn't just
Right.
one didn't just fall into your lap. Like you went out and earned it. Artis, shout out Artis. He likes to say, "I hope you have the day that you deserve." And it's like, well, what the heck does that even mean? Like for me personally, I try to be humble. Like, well, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to just
Yeah.
have a good day. I don't just deserve to have something great fall into my lap. Like, I want you to say instead, I hope you have the day that you earned. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll start trying to say that. Because Galen and I were talking about it the other day. Like, what does he mean by that? Have the day you
Yeah.
deserve. Like, it's almost like a
Yeah.
threat, but
Cause that's a hard thing to say, because then it's who determines what's deserving,
mm,
you know?
mm-hmm.
So at least when because it's like, have the day you deserve. Well, what if I accidentally cut somebody off in traffic and they, ran over a squirrel? I don't know. You know, so,
So am I supposed to get hit by a
is,
car?
yeah, is a transient gonna come through the woods and on my doorstep? I don't,
Oh, that's so funny. But it's
So at least it's, having the day that you earned, and sometimes even thinking about that ahead of time, setting out to earn a day. That's
hmm
something to even do.
right, right.
And like for me, it's like I have my deck of cards with just three different challenges on it, and it's like I'm just doing three a day, and that's the focus. And that's
Mm-hmm.
usually enough for me to be like, all right, we did earn the day, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Earn
I
the day.
earned this fifth of whiskey, you know.
Oh, I love that. I love how you worded that. Like the positive comfort. Like because we just kind of crapped on comfort. Like I wrote down, you said comfortable is detrimental. You said that earlier, but having
Yep.
the distinction, like okay, it's okay to be comfortable, and the difference in the two is you earned one of them. And like you'd said
Yeah.
earlier, like I can't remember how you said it about your environment. Like you looked at your environment and being responsible for the environment that you're in.
Yep.
Like, am I happy with this? Or, if I am, awesome. I earned it. It's great. If I'm not, okay, what can I do to change it to where I am comfortable in this environment in a positive
Well, you
way?
think about it, you think about, as a correctional officer, the power that you have to shape the environment of a housing unit,
Mm,
how you talk to the inmates, how you approach correcting them on certain things, the overall body language that you're giving off that everyone can observe. I mean, you've seen it where you've given a break to another officer and it just seems tense,
mm,
you know? So there is some level of ownership that we do have to take in that environment, in any environment. It's one of the big things that I've been thinking a lot about, and I touched on it the last time we went and had lunch, and I was talking about how I've sort of evolved, some of the philosophies that I stand by through Schrodinger's cat. And it used to be, rather than asking whether something is or isn't going to work out, just, you go and just start trying to do these things. And then I started even evolving in the last month where it's like, well, what if we're just not asking the right questions? And so it's not, especially when this job came up, it was like, I'm worried, is this going to work out? And that was like usually what stops most people from applying to jobs is they want to know it's going to work or it's not.
Hmm.
And then it's like, well, we need to start asking better questions. And the big ticket is like, well, what is it going to take for me to make this work? And that sentiment, you can apply to so many things. You think about the relationship with the significant other. I mean, have you ever like introspectively just thought like, what am I doing to make this work, and actually
Right.
being intentional about it? Because most
Hmm.
of the time we're just comfortable in the relationship, you know and it's not that you're ever going to always have it figured out, but it's that you're at least trying to like work on things constantly. And it's like, you know uh so some of the newer things about what I'm willing to do to make my relationship work is I want to be in shape so I can be my best self all the time, for to keep going in this relationship.
Mm.
you know I mean, yeah, I
Hmm.
would love to just eat Taco Bell every day and just die at a young age, but you know
But that doesn't solve any problems.
yeah, just Taco Bell 3 meals a day. Anthony dies at 45 on his toilet.
Right. That's gonna be the promo clip for this episode. That's funny. But no, you got a great point. Like you think, and that can be applied to every area of your life. Like, what am I doing to make this work? Whether it's successful or not. Maybe you have a relationship that's failing, a job that's failing. Maybe you have one that's really good. You have a job that's really good. You're doing great at it. It's like, okay, what am I doing that is making this successful, so I can continue to do that,
Yep.
or I can kind of take a step back and evaluate what more needs to be done. And like you said, you want to be in shape because it sets you up for success whenever it's needed in the future. I talk about
Right.
often is, we need to be our best when our best is required because we don't know when that's going to be. We don't know when someone's going to come knocking on our doorstep to try to harm our family, or when we're out in public. Similarly, somebody's going to try to harm my son or take my son. I got to be able to sprint and catch up to this person, or something as silly as hauling rock to fill in landscaping that we just did the other day. Like, am I going to be a liability at trying to do that, or am
Yeah.
I going to be able to? Am I going to be able to get this done for my enjoyment, for my wife's enjoyment, and like, so
Yeah.
my
It's
father-in-law doesn't
like,
have to do the whole
do
thing?
you do you have to hire out every time there's something laborious? You know,
Right, right,
you're gonna have to hire someone to tie your shoe because you can't reach over there. Just you're just gonna switch to slip-ons.
oh, right, right. Take the easy
We're
way out.
bringing Vans slip-ons are coming back.
There we go. No, I'm a big Croc fan too. I'm not. I do
I,
enjoy a good Croc every now and then.
no, but
Uh,
uh, to play off of what you said, I had this tattoo idea, years ago, where it was like taking the armor from Gladiator, Russell Crowe's armor with the two horses and the trees, and
mm-hmm.
like having just that front plate just sort of tattooed on your front torso. And
Dang.
it's just this mentality idea of like, you're this is you have to have your armor on and just sort of be ready to keep going,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that that readiness doesn't get taken off and hung up somewhere. It's on.
Right.
So there's just so many aspects of how that could apply.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't even mean putting that on, being better, being the best in the room, being better than everybody else. It's the bringing out the best possible version of yourself
Yep.
of who you were created to be. Yeah.
And sometimes, I think it's even more importantly than just the physical aspect, but your best mental self. you
100%.
know how many people are, trying to improve their mental health
Mm-hmm.
in any aspect, I mean, I could probably just walk up to most people and they would say that they would either jokingly say that they have, depression or something, or they just don't believe that they do. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, write out your day to day, let's write out how you spent your week, and let's
Mm-hmm.
see if, what is there something going on, and so I've always been a big advocate for therapy. I did it for
Mm-hmm.
years.
Mm-hmm. Same. That's good to help figure out. Like it's not a weakness. I think it's definitely a strength because you want to get to the bottom of what's going on inside your head because it affects everything else that you do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think nowadays, I think what's working for me right now is just keeping things simple, as simple as I can be. I can easily try to overdo and overcomplicate things. I mean, my wife brings it up all the time. Like if I start like thinking about healthy food options, they just start sort of getting more and more complicated over time. Where, if we just keep them simple, the consistency is way better. And we tend to eat much better
Mm,
in the long run, and it's worked for both of us.
right. So now, talking about this mindset and just like trying to be your best and building back and rebuilding and, knowing your story, it seems like you've done that a couple times throughout your life where you've, built from ground up. If you don't mind, maybe we've got just probably a few minutes here to kind of touch on some of those things. If you don't mind, would you be willing to kind of just share a little bit about your story, where you came from and how this mindset has helped you through those different times throughout your life?
Yeah, so it's a very Batman story. Rich family, and I basically took over the whole company, and now I just spend my time, living as a recluse during the day, and then going out at night and just beating the snot out of people. You know.
There you have it, folks. That's it. He is
Yeah.
essentially Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. I mean, there's life has definitely been, a roller coaster in several aspects, whether it's been what what were serious relationships that fell through, or my brother died in 2017, and then, I moved out to Minnesota, and then in 2018, is kind of the lowest point that I'd ever been at, and totally just focused on taking care of my grandfather who had dementia. And that ended up being arguably the most stressful 4 years of my life. I think a lot of people sort of have an understanding, at least they believe themselves to, of like what dementia is like, but having you be the sole person involved with that at the time, and dealing with it every day. I mean, that stage of my life, it was like I'd come home from the jail and just sort of sit in the parking space outside the house and just sort of, have a shed a couple of tears before going inside, just knowing that I need to either try to put on a strong face, or I was going to have a verbal fight with somebody because they're just in that state of confusion. And that went on for, 4.5 years. And then there's the physical stress side of things, because when you hit that stage of dementia, I'm he was a mess. It was, there was a lot of me scrubbing floors and rewashing clothes, and I mean constantly trying to clean up, because it was a gross 4 years just
Hmm.
in general. And through each one of those times, I always sort of find some type of way to just sort of hit pause and then just start, rebuilding, which is, what's been happening now, where it's like I hit a low point, and then, just started cleaning up. If your house is a mess, you can't clean everything all at once. I started in one room. Let's start trying to at least clean up some of the relationships that I had that I just sort of left off, you know? I just sort of, took the dirty towel and just threw it in the corner and then just never picked it up. And now it's like,
Mhm.
you know, let's pick up the Bailey's crusty towel and wash it.
Thanks for letting me be the towel at least, not like a sock or
Yeah.
something.
uh, but yeah, you have to, when you're at those points, you have to just hit pause to some degree and just start cleaning things. You
Mm,
can't bring anything new in. You just have to clean what's on the plate first. And so that was that step where it's like, let's start practicing the skills that I need to practice in order to start cleaning things up in my life.
mm,
So, let's start thinking about the hard emotions and, having giving yourself the grace to say, admit that, you made some emotional decisions or you made some mistakes and even apologizing. You can say sorry without being wrong or admitting you're just, saying, let's put a stop here and let's start building new. I think a lot of people would do well starting to do some of those things for sure.
And so was that similarly kind of like what you did with your brother, kind of taking a pause and building up from that, and then with your grandfather taking care of him. And when your grandfather was also, I was going to ask this, when he was in that state, had you had a relationship with him previously to that, to where you saw him in a
Not
different?
not always, because I only came to Minnesota like every like 4 or 5 years early on, so it was always when I was a child. And
Mm,
you don't really have an understanding of who people are when you are a kid. you know
mm,
uh you don't really have the clout to think about somebody's personality or any of that. You can say like, yeah, I remember my grandpa, but I couldn't tell you much about who he was. I just sort of ended up walking in, just I knew him and what he looked like, but I just sort of walked in just cold. uh and just sort of jumped in and I think that helped in a lot of ways with his dementia because I was so focused on trying to learn who he was during that time. If I felt like there was like a clear moment, then I could start picking his brain. And on moments that he was confused, I would just sort of talk to him about things I already knew to sort of help bring him out of it. But
mm-hmm.
otherwise, yeah, there were some real, some real screaming matches because it's just, it gets frustrating, especially when you're super close to a situation.
And deep down, is that one of those things? Because I know you were a correctional officer for a number of years and a firefighter, and if I'm not mistaken, you got to have the same badge number as your grandfather did. Is that what it was?
No, it was just he was actually one of the 10th badge number that they ever issued.
Got it.
Which was
Got it.
just, it was, and I had, I got to, that was hanging on the wall in the house, and but yeah, it was nice. I didn't become a firefighter until after he had already passed, which there was a part of me that wish I would have jumped on it sooner while he was still alive, and so he could have seen that aspect of it. But it was cool to be able to like follow in those footsteps for the 3 almost 4 years I think it was that I did it.
Yeah. It was also cool how my dad brought it up. We were at his house one day, and like, because I followed in his footsteps, and you kind of did this similarly with your grandpa being able to be a firefighter. And then my dad was like, "Yeah, I worked with him. I knew who he was. We were on calls together."
Yeah.
And towards the end of his career, so I was like, "Whoa, small world!" Like,
Right. Yeah.
crazy,
Oh,
super crazy. But with that
yeah.
service, I kind of got rabbit trailed there for a little bit. But with as a correctional officer, like becoming a firefighter, like, is it just within your soul to have servant heart, or where does that come from? Because you came from where you were living to come take care of this man, and it was really difficult for you. Was it just something that you felt like this just has to be done? I just need to do
Yeah,
this.
I mean, most of my life has been service oriented. It's a big part of the upbringing. I come from a second generation military family.
Mm,
And then from the time I was in second grade until I was 18, I was in scouts. I was involved in scouting, and it's all service oriented. And so that really
mm-hmm,
builds, that sort of develops you into being a service minded individual. So most of my jobs that I've had, I worked as a nursing assistant or in some healthcare capacity. And then all of a sudden I'm in corrections and then even in planning and zoning, I'm still it's still service oriented. I'm helping people navigate, local ordinance in order to achieve whatever their goal is, whether it's
mm,
building their vacation home or even just their forever home or what have you.
mm-hmm.
So it's still service oriented, and it always has been. That's just been a big part of who I've been as a person.
Speaking of scouts, Mr. Eagle Scout over here. Shout out Eagle Scout Anthony Moberg.
Yeah, yeah. PTSD from those scout camps.
Moving on. We're actually doing pretty good.
Oh,
Beforehand, I was like, this
I
is going to
know.
be probably the longest episode I'm going to have to edit. He's like, I'm going to behave. It's like trying to do a podcast
uh,
with Deadpool. I mean, honestly, if you see
yeah, right.
Deadpool, this guy right here, it might as well be the man behind, Merc with a mouth. Um, Kind of wrapping up here, dude. We've
uh,
had an awesome episode.
yeah,
I again appreciate you doing this. But
for sure.
a question that I ask all my guests on here, at least their first time on, and we're for sure gonna do more of these if you're willing to do it. But stay sharp. That's kind of the motto of the podcast. I've got the hat here, wearing it. What are we doing? What do you do to kind of fill your cup up? Like you talked about, this service-minded man that you are. You got all these different things that you put, pouring your heart into, pouring your work into. How do you continue to do that while also maintaining a full cup? How do you stay sharp for yourself and for others around you?
Yeah, mountains of cocaine, for sure. Just, no, I think nowadays I try to do less of mindset and more just on the discipline of just doing just a couple of things. You know, if for most people, I think about like diets and everything. Like you revamp your whole diet New Year's, for New Year's, within like 2 or 3 weeks, you've crashed. You tried to do a total revamp where the whole system that I'm working on where it's just doing just a couple of things and they're always different, but each one is sort of building the overall the whole thing. I always think about like those in certain video games, you have like that octagon chart, and your skills sort of work in those different areas, and they're all different things. Uh, and you just do the little things every day, and it can be different. So you have the variety. I don't take a walk every day, or I don't think about the same thing. I don't think about, I don't even think about how my day was every day, but I do a couple times a week. And just going through those motions of like just picking the few things and just doing it, something that doesn't take a lot of time, but the impact is great in the long run. And I think, we always try to tackle the big projects first. And when it comes to building yourself up, you have to start small and the repetition, and it's that discipline is how you keep doing something, and motivation and mindset you will find along that way. The idea of like apologizing, I practiced that over and over again. Then we were at lunch and I saw an opportunity and I just went and did it, because at that point I had the motivation already. I've had that mindset, but I had to build that to build it, because it's not easy. I mean, you know I think, how many people have ever actually like gone out and just apologized to people? You know, I don't
Probably not
even think my
enough.
wife knows what that word is. I'm
Yes,
kidding. I'm kidding. The timing. Oh,
Gosh, that was amazing. Well,
it
if
just
you
my
weren't,
screen just goes black. Just just
oh man, that was perfect. Well, I'll be praying for you, my friend.
right. You better
Ah.
wipe off this nose. It's about to get real brown here shortly.
Oh, that was amazing. Well, it's perfect timing. We're kind of getting to the end here, wrapping it up. But
Yeah.
no, man, I appreciate you coming on, being willing to kind of just share kind of our relationship and kind of what happened, and being able to build again. Like it's awesome. So I'm really
Yeah.
thankful that we were able to meet up again and get lunch and stay connected. And I'm
Oh,
excited
for
for
sure.
yeah, excited for what's ahead.
Yeah, and and I'm like I said, I am 100% supportive of this, and I'm happy to jump on whenever you need me, and it's easy for us to just sit and talk. So,
hmm Yeah, none of this was planned other than me writing a couple things down right beforehand. And I even asked you, I was like, hey, do you want to do it later on this week? Because I was like, I have a gap this afternoon. I should probably record something. And you're like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, well, do you want to wait a little bit? Nah, let's do it. Okay,
yeah.
sweet, let's go.
And that's that discipline thing. It's just like
Uh-huh.
you don't overthink it, just jump
Yeah.
in. And it works.
Mm-hmm. For sure, dude. All right, everybody. This has been another episode of the Iron Purpose Podcast. Stay sharp.